everybody. Hope everybody's having a good night tonight. Um, hopefully you've come straight from, hopefully I've timed this so that it's easy to come straight from the Connor Tomlinson interview. I'm going to ping my Discord though. Ping my Discord about my own stream here because I don't have full-time mods. Let me just copy my link here and go ahead and paste it in Discord. And then we'll get started for the night. I hope everyone's well. Oh, that's the wrong place to send that message. I sent it into the landing feed and not into our announcements. Ping everyone here. I hope everybody's good. I'm going to apologize in advance for my sniffles, because I've got the sniffles. Got a little cold, got the sniffles going on. So, and now my chat box in my is broken here. Well, my chat box is not big enough. There it is. Now we're good. Fantastic interview with Connor. Thank you so much. I did a little set reorganization, redesigning. So there's that. I'm just going to go ahead and tweet the stream. And there's that. So post comments. Okay. Just refreshing our chat here. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. It should be all good. Well, we'll just get going here while we wait for people to filter in. It is 1 a.m. in the UK. I went ahead and put Connor's channel link in the description of the interview because it's 1 a.m. in the UK and he has not yet accepted the collab invite, which is not his fault. I didn't get it to him till late because I edited it late because it was Christmas. I hope everyone had an excellent Christmas. And I hope you all are having a blessed 12 days of Christmas right now. I'm looking at myself in my YouTube window here, and it's just so washed out compared to how it looks on my Streamlabs window. It's just so frustrating. I'm just going to go into the filters here. We're going to play with the filters. Can't believe he didn't stay up till 1 a.m. for you. No, it's on me there. It's on me. Let's do some color correction here. Let's turn the brightness and the contrast up, maybe? Oh, no, let's turn the brightness back down. Let's turn the contrast to there. How's that look? How do we look? That contrast is a little too high. Maybe if we go down to, like, there? Let's go down to there. What does that look like? That's way better. That's so much better. That is so much better. We might be able to turn the brightness up a little now. Let's just turn that brightness up to, like, there maybe? That's too bright. All right, let's go back down. How How's this? That's pretty good. We can saturate it a little more, just a touch, just like the slightest little bit more. The ever so slightest touch more saturation. Maybe we'll turn the brightness back down. I did like it darker. And we will turn the saturation up. Turn the saturation up to like 10% larger. Let's turn our gamma down just a touch too. I just wish it would encode as nicely as it looks on my screen. It looks so much better on my screen than it encodes as. I'm just going to turn the contrast back up. The revamping of the background looks awesome. Yeah, I had to just throw that room divider up, but I had some time today, so I threw some extra stuff up. That's better. It's still not like as smooth. You know what I mean? Like it's just not smooth. Which sucks. I wish it was smoother. You know, it's not super smooth. My phone is buzzing. Oh, it's just Kyle liking my tweets. Got clothes for Christmas, very hype. I got this windbreaker for my little sister for Christmas. It's awesome. It's vintage. It's super sick. I look super good in it too. So shout out to her for that, for being awesome and doing that. Let's see. HG Moss is here. Masterion is here. X-Tex obviously here. Tabaki Matty looking good. So if you're here and you haven't said hi yet in the chat, please say hello. And we're going to test our Twitch chat here. Testing. See if I fixed it. I did fix it. Twitch chat now shows up on the chat window, which is good. Because it wasn't before. It wasn't because I changed to the @ on Twitch. There was a glitch. I had to unlink and relink Twitch, which I could not do live because then the stream would have gone down on Twitch. And it was better to not have it on screen than to have the stream go down. So there's that. You have Twitch now? Yes, twitch.tv/the Sanity Revolt. I just spilled water on my pants. So go there, check us out. If you're watching here, go to Twitch and turn it on. Go to the link, twitch.tv/the Sanity Revolt, and then just mute it. So you're watching it in both windows, so you can support the stream double plus good. I hope our British friend from last week, what was it, S70 Ghost, I think was his name from last week. I hope he shows up I hope you got to see the interview. If not, I'm sure he'll see it tomorrow. Let me turn off shield view. I keep turning shield mode on instead of clicking mod view when I'm on Twitch. There we go. There we go. So, everything's good. So, what's funny is, you remember I said last week when we were watching all the AmFest stuff, you remember I looked at the AmFest, I looked at that video of Steve Deese and Doug Wilson talking about Israel and was like, nothing's important in that. It was by far way more important than I thought. Like, probably an order of magnitude more. There was a lot of things said in it that I want to talk about. And there were some specific things said, and there was Doug Wilson did a reaction to it. So we are going to be reacting to that, and then who was it? What are their names? What are their names? You guys remember the super funny? You remember those two when we were reading the natalism article, Do you remember we were reading the natalism article, and it referenced the two high IQ atheist natalists, and then we went and watched some of their videos, and they're like insane, but they're also really funny. Do you guys remember this? I hope you guys remember what I'm talking about. I'm gonna look up their hold on, let me look up their names real quick. Shoot, what were their names? Oh, I gotta look up their names. Simone and Malcolm Collins. And we were just laughing at how funny they are. We were just laughing at how funny their whole like the Based Camp. Their YouTube channel is called Based Camp. These guys, do you guys remember these people? So funny. And the
Hello, Malcolm. I'm excited to be speaking with you.
they're so funny. They have the weird religion that they've invented themselves, and like
So
Wow.
of their top 10 accounts,
I'm trying to find the Hello Simone.
hello Simone, I am excited.
There it is. That's so funny. The article where they said they were breeding in bulk with pre-selected hand. I don't remember that part of the article, if that was part of it. All I remember from that article is that we found this couple and laughed about how funny they are for a super long time. So they did an interview, and actually Anthony from Avoiding Babylon posted a clip from it that went super viral for him. But I haven't watched it yet, because I was started to watch it and then I realized who they were and was like, I have to watch this on stream because they're so funny, dude. What's up, Sphenicus? I can't remember, like, all I can remember from that article is discovering Simone and Malcolm, because and it's literally just because Hello Simone tickled me so much.
Hello Simone, I am
Hello
excited.
Simone. So funny.
Hello Simone, I am excited to be here.
They're so funny. Anyway, Anthony posted a clip from them. So we're going to watch the Israel Amfest debate. We're going to watch the short clip from the Simone and Malcolm interview, and talk about that. And then I think that'll probably be it, since we also did the Connor Tomlinson interview that came out tonight. Those are aliens in disguise, and you can't convince me otherwise. They might be there, but they are hilarious. They're so funny. So I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. I had a lovely Christmas. I got some good books. And then my grandmother gave me some cash that I spent on an amount of film that would shock most people, with the express purpose of hello, there we go. With the express purpose of buying all the film I could possibly need for this year. So we'll hope that it will last me. We'll just hope that the selections I made were the best ones. You know what I mean? Which is a slightly different, those are two different questions, right? Like, if I bought enough to last me a year, yes, objectively I did. That's a math problem. Did I buy enough? Did I buy the right kinds of film? Like, did I buy the kinds of film that are not, did I buy the right kinds? Like, am I going to need more than 2 rolls of Delta 32? I don't think so, but it's hard to tell. Am I going to need more than 1 roll of HP 5? I don't think so, because I also got the Let It Snow. but I'm looking at this now and realizing that I probably should have got more than one roll of HP5. Am I going to need more than one roll of Portrait 4 and Portrait 8? I hope not. Those are absurdly expensive. If you guys don't know, look at, okay, this is a total aside. Portrait 800 is $20 a roll. Portrait 4, similarly, like $20 a roll. So, am I going to need more than 2 rolls of Cinestill 800T? I hope not. Also, like $20 a roll. More than 2 rolls of E100? I really hope not. Similarly, about $20 a roll. So, hopefully this is enough. These two up here at the top I haven't shot before. Nice stock though. Yeah, it's the best. That's why it's $20. It's so good. Here's another thought I had. I know I just spent forever tweaking the color so that it looks good on YouTube, which it still doesn't. It's like not it's just objectively not correct, you know? Like it's not correct. Maybe it's because the color science on my monitor up there is wrong. Anyway, maybe I've got the wrong color profile, using the wrong color profile for that. So that is a possibility. That's beyond a possibility. Oh, it's hopefully not. Anyway, I don't think so. I think I'm using the right one. Anyway, it's definitely washed out for some reason. YouTube is just washing it out. I don't know what's going on. Interesting. But I was thinking about getting a gold mist for this camera, which would be hilarious. It would be the most Thursday thing I've ever done if I got a gold mist filter for my camera that I stream with. It would be super funny, and I've thought about doing it. So there's that. Carlos here, which cameras do you use, both film and digital? So this is, so I don't shoot digital a lot. I have an EOS M50 Mark 1, which is just an older one. So that's APS-C sensor sized. And then I've got the camera I'm streaming with currently, which is not mine. I just borrow it. And then I've got the 3 cameras I use the most for film back here is a T70, which is just like my super cheap, easy to use one because it's pretty much fully automatic. You can just set it to do everything yourself, or you can set it to manual modes, but pretty much most of the time I just put it in a program, which just means it's auto, and put the whole thing on automatic, and then there's just some cheap film in there. And I don't think there's any film in this right now, so let's open it and find out if I'm about to ruin some film. There's no film in this right now, which means I can... So you can hear it's more automatic. Instead of like an actual mechanical shutter, it's electronic shutter, right? And it's not going to fire because there's no film in it, so... but you can hear what the shutter sounds like when I open and close the door. So that's what the shutter sounds like. And then these 2 cameras I can't fire because they do have film in them currently. This is my newest camera, the QL17G3, which we looked at last week. If you don't know what a QL17G3 is, you should look it up. It's a lovely Canon rangefinder. That is currently going up in price because they're getting more popular, but I got it at a good price, imported it from Japan. It's in mint condition, so hopefully it'll be a good investment long term. I think these are going to become more expensive. I would not be surprised by this time next year to see these be worth in the $600 to $700 range, and I paid $200 for it. So, and about 3 or 4 months ago, it was only worth about $100 to $150. So I really do think these are going up. It's a lovely camera. am really enjoying shooting this. I haven't gotten my film back from it, though, yet, so we'll see what happens with that. And then the other one that I'm not going to move because it is so heavy that it is currently being used as a bookend for my Kodak shooting guides, which are antiques that I bought at an antique store. But this is a Canon F1, which is 100% brass, and I won't move it because I've showed it off on stream multiple times, but also because firing it I'm not going to fire it because I have Cinestill 50 in there, which is an incredibly expensive film stock that I'm not going to burn a roll of to show you guys what it sounds like. But what I can do, actually, that's not true. I can show you guys what it sounds like because if you've ever listened to anything I've edited in the past 3-ish years for either Pints or for Chastity Project, and there has been a shutter firing sound in there, a camera click sound. So if you've ever heard any of that and there's a shutter sound in it, that is the F1 because I recorded it myself, and I will play it for you now. Nope, this one. Oh no, I just opened Audition. I've accidentally opened Audition. This was a mistake. Do not open Adobe Audition. There we go. Here we go. And now I've accidentally opened Apple Music because I was trying to play the shutter sound. Here you go. I will play this for you. Oh, shoot. Here you go. So there you go. That's what an F1 sounds like. That ringing-ish sound you're hearing is actually because it's 100% brass. So it is very heavy. Yeah. Maybe the real shutter sounds are the friends we made along the way. I hope not. The QL17 has such a quiet shutter because it's actually, I think it's a leaf shutter actually, because it's a rangefinder, so there's no mirror slap. Do you have a specific sort of photography you like to do? I like to do, I guess technically cityscape because I like to do it around Steubenville, but I just like analog photography. It's a lot of fun. Daniel Pacelli said, "This is a nice set, solid color profile." Thank you. My parents got me this for Christmas, which is banging. It's super funny. It goes hard. And it is real steel. Like it might be aluminum. Anyway, either way, it's so heavy. And I don't have anything that will hang this safely in drywall currently. One, because my landlord doesn't like me to put holes in the wall for obvious reasons. And two, because I don't have any command strips that I trust to hold this. And also because there's not a lot of places to stick a command strip on it vertically. Like I could put one horizontally here, but then obviously it's horizontal, it's pulling sideways, and the command strips are made to be pulled down on. So there's that. So yeah, I want to hang this eventually. But it is super cool. So there's that. And then the books I got are behind me. I got The Camp of the Saints, Witness by Whittaker Chambers, and Patrick Buchanan's Day of Reckoning. So my Buchanan collection grows. I will own all of it one day. I heard the eagle screech. There's a distinct spring sound. Sounds very good quality, if that makes sense. Yeah. Well, it's 100% brass, so there's a very heavy spring because it's a heavy mirror. But then also it's ringing off of the brass, so that's why that sounds that way. Yeah. So, hope that all sounds good to you guys. I'm going to pull up the stream on my phone so I can see what it actually looks like, because I don't trust my monitors, if that makes sense. I think my monitor's colors might be off, which would be a problem for my job. But I might have to recolor calibrate. Okay, it's a little more washed out than on the actual, the output, what I'm seeing on the output, what I'm seeing on the monitor. or sorry, it's a little more washed out than what I'm seeing in my streaming software, but it is not as washed out as the monitor, which means my monitor needs to be color worked. So there's that. But yeah, everything on the set, I think I brought back most of the stuff from the old set, so you'll recognize it, except for this, which was given to me by Jacob and Mom a few years ago for my birthday, and this, which was not Shane's most recent, but his previous specials poster that he signed for me, the one that he used my name in as a joke for a ghost. So there's those, and I think that's everything. This is still the Nixon portrait, but I've got the towel over it, at least until the playoffs are over. So go Hoosiers. Go Fernando. So there's all that. You look fine to us. Well, I'm glad I look fine. It just doesn't look the same, and it bugs me, if that makes sense. Because it means either one of my monitors is wrong, or YouTube is severely compressing my video. Based on your interview with Connor, what do you make of the current situation in the UK? I know you briefly talked about it into the interview, but any expansions? I don't think I have any expansions. I do think the UK's problems are more solvable than the United States, just because it's smaller and their legal system would make solving them quicker and easier. But I don't think I have any expansions on it from there, to be honest with you guys. I'm going to grab my cough drops. 20 seconds. 2 seconds. I'm back. See, I told you guys it would be quick. I lost 2 viewers because I literally took 2 steps away from the camera. That's hilarious. Anyway. All right. 9 seconds? All right. Well, still lost 2 viewers, so that's funny. I can't believe you'd lie to us. Oh, I use you guys all the time. It's not even hard. I do it without blinking. So, my cough drop is catching in the mic. I can see it, and I'm got self-conscious about it and was trying to figure out how to make it not do that, and then I realized that I should just give up. All right, let's watch this Amfest video.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this debate on Israel. Isn't it amazing how so many of the policy debates and
First of all,
arguments we're having in the public square on both sides of the Atlantic so often stem from
why is a guy not from America moderating a debate on foreign affairs and foreign policy? I've got the cough drop in a spot where it won't make noise, but it's making my voice sound funny. This is a disaster. Did you go to Amfest last year? No, I did not. So I can't believe this guy is being allowed to moderate a debate on his, like, why are we doing this? You know, this is ridiculous.
from obscure disciplines like history. How do we tell our history? How do we get our history right? Well, I think the same is true of theology. Theology always buries its undertakers. Theology is always creeping back in through the back door just when you thought the secular world had thought they'd got rid of it. And there are a few theological issues that are of more pressing concern than that of the question of Israel. And we are so fortunate to have with us two people who are exceptionally well qualified to address these difficult issues. First up, we have Pastor Doug Wilson, who is probably needs very little introduction. He is pastor of Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho.
Will this be a debate? I
Canon
don't know.
Press and New St. Andrews
I don't
College.
think it was very much of a debate. I thought it was pretty boring. I wanted to focus on a couple key things that were said because I was frustrated about it. I've moved my chair accidentally. Interesting. Huh. Oh well. Hi, Levi. What you need?
And the author, of course, of many, many important works of theology and public theology and engagement with culture. Next up will be Steve Dace. Steve has a fantastic show, the Steve Dace
Why
Show
is
on
Christopher
Blaze
Nolan
TV.
moderating this?
He is a
He does
regular
look like Christopher
commentator
Nolan.
from a Christian conservative perspective on many, many issues that are moving through the public square. We're so fortunate to have him. So each is going to give an opening statement. We'll have a brief conversation, then open things up to you for your own questions, and then we'll round off with a couple of closing statements. Pastor Wilson, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks to the organizers for having me. The biblical expositor John Stott once observed that fuzzy thinking was one of the sins of the age. When you connect this to ignorance, malice, and bad faith, you can find yourself with something that is truly rancid. This being the case, I wanted to use my opening statement to lay out some basic definitions. Please pardon my use of notes here, because this topic and time are so important that I didn't want to leave anything crucial out accidentally. Zionism was a 19th century movement among Jews urging a return to their ancestral homeland of Israel. Atheist Jews could be Zionists, and observant Jews could be Zionists for religious reasons. Christian Zionists are Christians, usually dispensationalists, who believe that the reestablishment of Israel in 1948 was the fulfillment of prophecy and that Jews have a divine mandate to hold the land. De facto Zionists are those who don't believe that the promise to Abraham in Genesis 12 has anything to do with it, but who recognize that almost 8 million Jews are there now with the same right to defend their territory that any other country would have. I illustrate this by noting that I don't believe in the doctrine of manifest destiny at all.
Somebody just said Philip Rivers. We can watch Philip Rivers highlights later.
But I still live in Idaho. This brings us to replacement theology, which also has a fancier name, supersessionism. This is the view that the church is Israel now and is the lawful heir of all the covenant blessings promised in the Old Testament. This is the view that in Romans 11, the Apostle Paul described the one olive tree as straddling both eras, Old Testament and New. This is the view of most Reformed or covenantal theologians, and it is the view that I hold. But wait, there's more. There's hard supersessionism, which is the idea that today's ethnic Jews are now entirely outside God's covenantal dealings and are just one more tribe living alongside the Japanese, the Swedes, and the Navajo. I do not believe this. The variant is soft supersessionism, which is the idea that although unbelieving Jews were cut out of the olive tree because of their unbelief, Paul prophesied that they would be grafted back in again, which would be a great spiritual blessing to the entire world. This is the mainstream view of Reformed theologians from the Reformation down, and is the view that I hold. Soft supersessionism.
All right. So here's the thing. I think I understand that, but I didn't look it up when he said it because I realized I kind of didn't get it. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to look it up live while I was reacting to this. So, first things. Let's look at first things. All right, never mind. This is anti-trad. We're not doing that. Should I use Wikipedia? Is this dumb? No, it's dumb to use Wikipedia. For sure, it's dumb. All right, we'll have to use the First Things article and just read around the trad hatred. Supersessionism describes the theological conviction that the Christian church has superseded the Jewish people, assuming their role as the covenanted people Israel. At first glance, supersessionism seems to be a core Christian belief, making any fruitful dialogue between Jews and Christians impossible, since it seems to entail that the Christian replacement of the Jewish people as God's covenant partner. But on closer example, there are two kinds of supersessionism, hard and soft. The former does indeed prevent dialogue, the latter, however, does not. All right. So I'm unclear how this prevents dialogue. So unless they're going to present an argument for how it prevents dialogue, I'm going to be angry because I don't think it does. I'm not seeing how it does on its face, so you can't just say it does unless you're going to present an argument. Hard or maximal supersessionism asserts that God has elected Christians to displace the Jews in the covenant between God and his people. Christianity is to be taken as Judaism's necessarily total successor or fulfillment. For hard supersessionists, the only option for Jews is conversion to Christianity. This means an abandonment of Judaism. Hard supersessionism of this sort kills Jewish-Christian dialogue before it even starts. The Jews, faithful to the Jewish tradition, cannot accept this categorical dismissal of Judaism's theological validity. All right, here's the problem. It is not a categorical dismissal of Judaism's theological validity. Categorical. All right, let's hold on. I'm going to look up the dictionary definition because for me, it would be unambiguously explicit and direct. Okay. The theological validity of Judaism is that it leads to Christianity. It has theological validity, right? It doesn't mean that you have to accept it. And I'm not, yeah, this sentence is, this sentence is, I mean, there's so much wrong with it. Faithful to the Jewish tradition. Well, they're not practicing the Jewish religion that was practiced in the Old Testament. That's just an academic fact. Like, you can't argue that they are. There's no temple. There's no sacrifice. It's a different religion. They have a holy book that's younger than Christianity. So this is just, what are we doing? First of all, no. Categorical dismissal of Judaism's theological validity. I don't think Judaism has... this is also untrue. To say that you only can be saved by converting to Christianity is a dismissal of Judaism's theological validity. What it is saying that Judaism needed to be fulfilled, which is what the Bible said, and that Judaism's theological validity is reached in Christianity and is absent without it. Like, is non-existent without it. And it's not true that it would be non-existent without it. It's non-existent unless the Messiah comes. So you have this weird place. You're creating, I think you're creating a false dichotomy, maybe, when you say that, because I have to check my phone when I'm doing these things, just in case somebody's texting me that I'm being an idiot. Because it seems to me that Judaism's theological validity is that it prepares the world for the Messiah, and they think that the Messiah is still coming. Right? That's their argument. They're waiting on the Messiah. So Judaism's theological validity has been reached, and they are denying that theological validity. So I don't think it's a categorical dismissal of their theological validity. I mean, like, just that doesn't seem true at all. So, okay. Christian proponents of hard supersessionism regard the recent more positive Jewish-Christian relations as regrettable. For example, some traditionalist Catholics would like to downplay and even set aside the teachings of the Second Vatican Council, especially Nostra Aetate, which affirms God's covenant with the Jewish people has not been superseded, but is forever valid. All right. Does it say that? What? The full theological implication of this bold new teaching. What are we doing? Bold new teaching. All right. What? Huh? Wow. That's crazy. That is crazy. As well, all right, indeed, the church believes that his cross, our peace, reconciled the Jews and the Gentiles. I'm not seeing that. As well as most of the early disciples who proclaimed Christ's gospel sprang from the Jewish people. Okay. Holy Scripture testifies Jerusalem did not recognize the time of her visitation, nor did Jews in large numbers accept the gospel. Indeed, very few opposed its spreading. Not a few proposed its spreading. Nevertheless, the gospel holds the Jews most dear for the sake of their fathers. He does not repent of the gifts he makes or of the calls he issues, such as the witness of the apostle. Okay, since the spiritual patrimony common to Christian Jews is thus so great, the Sacred Synod wants to foster and recommend that mutual understanding, respect with fruit. Okay. True, the Jewish authorities and those who followed their lead pressed for the death of Christ. That's crazy. I didn't know that was in here. Nostra Aetate says that the Jewish authorities asked for it. Still, what happened in his passion cannot be charged against all the Jews without distinction, then alive, nor against the Jews of today. Although the church is the new people of God, the Jews should not be presented as rejected or accursed by God, as if this follows from the Holy Scriptures. That is not a statement. If this is what we're talking about, this is not a statement that the covenant is still... All right, we're going to have to keep looking, but that doesn't mean the covenant... that doesn't mean they don't need to convert. Assuming I can make a fitting analogy, to say the only option for a train passenger is to leave at the station denies the validity of the train. Judaism is valid insofar as it ends at Christ. Yeah. Right? You're saying a train journey begins with you driving to the train station. To say that the only way to reach your destination is to get on the train is to deny the validity of the car. That's clearly not true. It's just to say that it's invalid to stop at the car is not invalid, nor are you saying the car is bad if you say that it's bad to stop at the train station. I hope that made sense. The thing that is invalid is to stop at the train station, not the car journey that reaches there. Mindful of the patrimony she shares with the Jews, and moved not by political reasons, but by gospel, spiritual love, she decries hatred, persecutions, displays of anti-Semitism directed against any Jews at any time. Okay. Yes, all that's good. I'm not seeing anywhere where it says the covenant is still upheld. What? Do we have citations? Question mark. I'm not seeing citations. Let's turn off reader view and look for citations. This is a really long article. That's interesting. All right, what is soft supersessionism? I just want to know what soft is at this point. How then can Christians speak about fulfillment as they must and still remain in dialogue with the Jews? This can be done through what might be called soft or minimal supersessionism. In this view, Christianity brings something new, a New Testament, to the covenant between God and Israel. That does not mean, though, that Christians must see Jews as set aside or replaced, any more than the new tenants who have built upon the first story of a house must displace the original tenants on the main floor, even if the original tenants do not want to move in upstairs with them. Christian soft supersessionism can mean accepting the historical fact that Jews have remained with the unsupplemented ancient covenant while Christians have been called by God. So this is dispensationalism. Calling it soft supersessionism doesn't make it not dispensationalism. With the unsupplemented ancient covenant while Christians have been called by God to a higher level by their affirmation of Jesus as a Christ. Jewish exceptionalism should be respected because, as Christians acknowledge, no one should be forced, cajoled, or seduced into the Christian version of the covenant. Okay. Yeah. Indeed, Jews are a special case in this regard. Unlike others who do not believe in Jesus, we already know the proto-evangelium, the technical term Christian use for the covenant, and promises of the Hebrew Bible that allow one to recognize Jesus. The combination of a commitment to free assent in faith with a recognition that Jews already know enough to make up their own minds is why soft supersessionists have largely abandoned evangelization that specifically and directly targets the Jews. Soft supersessionism is also supported by a theocentric view of the end time. Only God has the right to bring a person into the covenant, in this case the Jews, that probably will have to wait for the final redemption for which Christians will be Christ's second coming. I call this the eschatological horizon of soft supersessionism. It enables Christians who advocate it to speak with Jews in good faith in the present, yet to be redeemed, interim or waiting time, yet that dialogue is still not an encounter of equals. Judaism is still taken to be proto-Christianity, hard supersession. Yeah, okay. So they're going to be redeemed eventually, just not by the covenant, but we don't have to evangelize them. So how is this any different in effect than dispensationalism? I'm not saying the ends justify the means. I'm just saying that it seems like you're saying dispensationalism. You're saying that they're going to be redeemed in some way other than the way everyone else is, which sounds like dispensationalism. This makes it seem like Christianity is to Judaism as Aristotle is to Plato instead of the whole point of Judaism. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And also, I know we didn't read the whole Nostra Aetate, but dog, it's not in here unless they put it under a word other than Jew or covenant or Judaism. I mean, Christian Wagner's going to see this. If Christian Wagner sees this, he's going to send me a DM on Twitter and be like, did you for real Control F Nostra Aetate and then start to talk about it? And I'm going to have to tell him yes. Because that's what I just did. And he can scold me, rightfully so, but I ain't got time to read the whole thing. Excuse me. Try upholds or promise. Okay. All right. Fine. That's a good idea. Uphold, no promise. The church keeps ever in mind the words of the apostle about his kinsmen and their sonship, and the glories of the covenant and the law, the worship and promises. Theirs are their fathers, and from them is the Christ according to the flesh. The Son of the Virgin Mary, she also... The Son of the Virgin Mary, she also recalls that the apostles and the church's mainstay and pillars, as well as most of the early disciples who proclaimed Christ's gospels to the world, sprang from the Jewish people. I'm not seeing it. What does this mean? Theirs is the sonship and the glory, and the covenants and the law and the worship and the promises. Theirs are the fathers, and from them is the Christ according to the flesh. not seeing in there where it says that the covenant is salvific. Anyway.
Ecumenical lies would be vain humanistic attempts to keep peace by refusing to face the actual differences between Christian and Jew. Jesus was either the promised Messiah of Israel or he wasn't, and he either rose from the dead or he didn't. Honest Christians and honest Jews can and should be friends, but lying is not the way. I don't like using the term anti-Semitism when I can help it, because like the term racism, it has been greatly devalued through numerous misapplications. It is not anti-Semitism to disagree with Benjamin Netanyahu. It is not anti-Semitism for Christians to... It is not anti-Semitism for Christians to want Jews to believe in Christ. It is not anti-Semitism to differ with Israeli policies in the West Bank. The problems come in with the adverbs, the way in which such things are held and argued. Actual anti-Semitism, or what I prefer to call Jew hate, is what happens in my Twitter feed anytime I mention Israel. Jew hate is October 7th. Jew hate is Bondi Beach. It is the belief that Jews are a uniquely malevolent force for evil in the world, and that this fact justifies a one-size-fits-all negative response to anything related to them. Christian Zionists and Christian supersessionists do have pronounced theological differences, but the one thing they can agree on is that Jew hate is a serious sin. What do I mean by high-performance people? The Jews are a talented and hardworking people, and Jewish mothers are always pleased to introduce you to my son.
He never said high performance people. He's clearly cut something out of that part of the speech and then forgotten to put it back in, which annoys me. I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's not a big problem, but it does annoy me that he's obviously cut something. It feels weird that there's something missing.
I'm the doctor. But they are also, like the rest of us, sons of Adam, making them dirty, rotten sinners. So if they are overrepresented among the Bolsheviks and the media moguls, just remember that they are also overrepresented among Nobel Prize winners and patent holders. Professing Christians who are backsliding into Jew hate, and it is backsliding, are angry because the Jews don't believe in Jesus. Jews are the enemy, it is thought. But Jesus commanded his followers to love their enemies, which you are manifestly not doing. So why should Jews listen to Jesus if you don't? Last thing, and you may consider this a little bonus round item, I mention it only because I believe it was brought up at this conference earlier. This bonus topic is the USS Liberty, attacked by Israeli planes in 1967, killing 34 Americans. I'm making no assertions here. All I am doing is noticing. All I'm doing is asking questions, like Candace does, recklessly connecting dots. The Liberty was an intelligence-gathering ship, and LBJ was president. Israel was in the middle of a hot 1967 war. How confident are you personally that there was no American deep state in '67? How confident are you that we weren't playing both sides and feeding intel to Egypt? How confident are you that America can only be double-crossed and can never be the double-crosser? Your confidence in the essential goodness of the CIA is endearing. I want to close by saying, and this is crucial,
So here's the main problem. This one pissed me off. This one made me so angry. This guy is saying he's doing the I'm just asking questions thing. But what he's missing, right? What he's completely missing is he's saying that if the U.S. was gathering intel on that ship, then they deserved to, Israel had a right to kill them. Now, here's the thing. If you're a patriot, if you love your country, then you side with your country. If there was a reason to gather intel, then if the United States is gathering intel, your first assumption should be that there was a reason to gather intel and it was in our interests, and that you should not side with the people who killed your kinsmen, your countrymen. But Doug Wilson's assertion here, to the applause and laughter of people in this crowd, seems to be that there were conditions on which Israel was justified to kill people. He later said on Twitter that he didn't think it was justified. What they did was wrong. But his question here is putting into the Overton window that there are conditions on which foreign governments should be allowed to kill American soldiers with zero consequences. That is an unacceptable position to hold in politics if you are going to claim to be a thought leader. If you're going to claim to be an American political thought leader, or you're going to try to hold that position, it's an unacceptable thing to say that you would side with a foreign government in the murder of your soldiers. You could say that you don't think that you could say that you don't think that they should do that. You should say you wouldn't participate in it. But you cannot say that you think they should have died. And here's the other thing, and this is Mysterion has caught where I'm going actually, if Mysterion has caught where I'm going here, because, and this is a question I'd like to know, like I would actually be interested to know Pastor Wilson's thoughts on. He says, Mysterion said, I wonder what conditions he'd allow for the U.S. to attack Israel. If the United States was gathering intel on Israel and Israel did attack them, would that not justify a return attack? And would that not justify at least not assisting them in their wars which do not affect us? Because I think the answer is yes. So the question is, does this act of war, casus belli situation go both ways, Pastor Wilson? Are you willing to say that you're justified, that the United States would be justified in attacking Israel? Are there conditions on which the United States could attack Israel? For example, if the Israeli government was holding someone who, I don't know, spied on the United States, right? And committed treason, and the Israeli government was protecting him from our justice that we would like to give him. If that was happening, would we be justified in would we be justified in maybe at least telling them we don't care what happened to them? And who is this guy? Because this is a thing that happened and I can't think of his name, and I was trying to Google it and stall and I can't think of the name. Can somebody tell me the name in chat, please? Someone in chat, tell me the name. I guess I will go to Grok. I will grok it. I will ask Grok. What is the name of the U.S., the man who committed treason against the USA that Israel is granting? Pollard. Thank you, Christopher Burke. Pollard. Not Tony Pollard. I guess I'll Google Israel. Jonathan Pollard. I knew his first name was Jonathan. It was in my head. Because this is the thing that's happening. If you guys don't know, Israel is currently granting asylum to a man in the who committed espionage and treason against the United States. I believe that Mike Huckabee has met with him recently. Yep. American who spied for Israel says he met Ambassador Mike Huckabee to thank him for his support. Convicted Israeli spy. He's convicted. So this is not a conspiracy theory. He's convicted. Jonathan Pollard downplayed the controversy around his private meeting with Mike Huckabee, telling NBC the visit was personal and wasn't done surreptitiously. The main point of the meeting was to thank the ambassador at the U.S. Embassy. He was on U.S. soil. We could have arrested him. I didn't know it was at the embassy. He's on U.S. soil. He's on U.S. soil. Good grief. So, Pastor Wilson, this cuts both ways. This cuts both ways. He looks like a math teacher. He kind of does look like a math teacher. He has math teacher aura. Spying will get Nixon impeached, Americans killed, and Jews amnesty. Yeah, seems like it.
Close by saying that I believe that...
Also, Nixon didn't spy on anybody. Victor Lasky, It Didn't Start with Watergate. Excellent book. Somebody asked me for book recommendations at the start. You should read Patrick Buchanan's firsthand accounts of working for Nixon, both the campaign and the in the administration. It's called The Greatest Comeback and Nixon's White House Wars. Those two books. You should read those two books. Those are my two recommendations. If you're totally new in politics, I would recommend Ship of Fools by Tucker Carlson, which I know some of the people in my chat are going to hesitate on, but trust me. I need you to trust me. Trust me, bro. I need you to give me a trust me, bro. I think I've earned a trust me, bro. That book is the best book for people who need to be introduced to politics. Riza on Twitch. Thank you for watching on Twitch, Riza. China has a massive successful operations against the United States. They have indoctrinated people betting their interests, for example, deindustrializing the United States in the name of climate change, keeping hostility towards the United States and Russia has been very successful from China. That's true. Not spying. We'll get Nixon impeached. Thank you for the correction, Mysterion. Nice. Thank you. We'll be getting those. Trusting you on these, bro. Fist bump. W's in the chat for Tucker. I like Tucker. I think he's an odd duck. All right. This is what I'll say on Tucker. We'll do a total aside. Tucker's an odd duck. He says weird things sometimes. He interviews people who he does weird interviews. He did that interview with that guy who was just like, trust me, bro, Obama's gay. I had sex with him once. Like, he did that interview and it was weird. I don't get it. I don't understand what the point of that was, but a lot of the times he's really funny and he does have pretty good instincts. I will say the latter halves of those books have of Ship of Fools has some problems. Hopefully Carlos will be able to catch on to those without me breaking them down for him, just because I don't want to get banned from YouTube. But Tucker is a good overall. I do think especially the larger point of that book, I think there are some problems with it, right? But the larger point of that book, which is basically a historiography of the formation of the Uniparty in the early 21st century leading up to the first Trump administration, is very good. It's very useful. I think it's something that anybody who wants to understand American politics who's never really tried before would benefit from. That's my larger point on that. Yeah. Tucker agrees with me why we got hostility against Russia where we can benefit alliances with them and mutual trade. Yeah, I don't think Russia's as big of a threat as everybody says they are. I think they're kind of a paper tiger. And I don't like the idea of having I don't like the idea of having favored allies like we do with Israel. I don't like the idea of having hated enemies where we have a country who's always our enemy regardless of what they're doing. I think our alliances and our hostilities ought to be more fluid based on what they're doing. So
debates about foreign policy and America's relationship to Israel and what happened to the USS Liberty or anything like that are
I think that's true. I think that's probably the case. I think he's right about this.
If passive-aggressive gas
That's a really
Those
funny line. He's
assertions
right about that. Oh, shoot, I muted it,
are not
and you
the
guys
same
couldn't hear it.
universal. Debates about whether the organizers of this conference were complicit in the murder
dumb.
of Charlie are in another category entirely, a category best described as demented or unhinged. If passive-aggressive gaslighting insolence had a basketball team, it is long since time to retire Candace's jersey.
It's a good insult. It's clever. Come on, it's
Assertions
clever.
are not in the same universe at all, and so the latter one must never be allowed to hide under the former. Thank you.
Pastor Doug Wilson, thank you so much for that opening statement. Now over
Before we get to Steve's statement, if you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube and you haven't subscribed or followed, please do so.
to you, Steve Dace.
Well, I have to just say, on a personal level, I mean, one of the voices that God put into my life very early in my conversion to disciple me was Doug. And I mean, I've listened to countless. It was so long ago, it was cassette tapes, Doug. Yeah. All right. So it is my honor to be here on this stage to get my brain beat in by Doug today. I can't wait to do that. I don't disagree really with anything. I wanted to make sure the ecclesiastical authority here, Doug, defined the terms. So let me define, since he's the pastor, I'm the pugilist, maybe I can help define the terms of the debate itself.
Steve is a Catholic, so I'm not a huge fan of him giving Doug the referring to Doug as as the ecclesiastical authority in the debate. That makes me uneasy. I understand he is an ecclesiastical authority in the sense of the word is, a church authority, not lowercase c. He's the leader of an ecclesiastical community, not a church, because there's one church. But I am uncomfortable with a Catholic referring to a non-Catholic pastor as an ecclesiastical authority. Wait, I've been following the whole aftermath, but there's a conspiracy that Turning Point USA is involved. Yeah, Candace has put that forward. She's said that Erica and Charlie's producers may have been involved.
Now that the actual terms are defined. There are great minds throughout the history of the church that have had great differing views on what Romans 9 through 11 actually means. And it's so funny, terms like dispensationalist are a buzzword today. I'm not even a dispensationalist. And replacement theology, I would also say on the other side, is a buzzword as well. And a lot of times these are terms that are thrown around so I can instantly determine whether you're on my team or not. Right? But that's not the seeking of truth. That's really the installing of tribe. All right? So there's parts of Romans 9 through 11, and what does it mean? Does it mean there'll be a future congregation of Israelites in a place called Israel? It's funny, Jonathan Edwards, maybe the greatest preacher in American history. We may not be here today without Jonathan Edwards. He entertained a lot of what...
All right, here's another thing. Look, first of all, another thing I didn't look up, so I can look it up live, so I can react live. All right. Religion. I just want denomination. Okay, so he's not Catholic. I don't like it when Catholics give non-Catholics awards like most important preacher in American history. Not a huge fan of that. If I had to pick the greatest preacher in American history, I would go with this guy. Or Mother. The goat. My goat. Right? My goat. My goat. Either way, I don't even know who you are. The Great Awakening. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down? One of the two. I mean, if you're Catholic, you got to give the props to your team, to our people. It'd be similar to calling him Orthodox. Don't know what you're referring to. Please give me clarification. I worked for TP last year, and there definitely was a weird vibe to the company, very cold and calculated at times. Yeah, that's all political companies. They tend to be that way.
Out of the Reformation, that era, we would probably consider today, at least in polite comments on Jews and Judaism, maybe even to the point of anti-Semitism. And yet, Jonathan Edwards also believed there would be a future country at the end, and Romans 9 through 11 would be fulfilled by a future recongregation of Israel that may be the place where the timeline of prophecy and history is ultimately fulfilled. And so you see the nuance there. Right? And what you see a lot in my industry right now is people that are not studied, that are loud and uninformed, that do not understand these nuances, that frankly were not discipled by pastors like Doug, do not seek out the discipleship and the accountability that Charlie did. As his friend, I can tell you, I saw it personally. I saw how Charlie interacted with his own home church personally. I saw Charlie go out to pastors like Rob McCoy to get added extra accountability personally. I saw how Charlie had his own traveling theologian in Frank Turek in order to check his work and be held accountable personally. He took the position that God put him in very seriously. He took accountability and wisdom very seriously. And I think that there may be some good-meaning people. You absolutely can applaud for that, you bet. And I think there might be some well-meaning people in my business who are new Christians and are asking a lot of these questions, and I think that is fine. But I think they also are doing so without maybe connection to a local church and real biblical discipleship and teaching, and we want to fill in some of those gaps here today. And then I think there are, frankly, some bad faith agents that are maybe bringing up some of these things in order to cover for what their real agenda is. So let's just set one term of the debate. Regardless of what we prophetically think Romans 9 through 11 happens to mean, and there have been great minds all throughout the history of the church who do not agree on this, the one thing Romans 9 through 11 makes very clear, the one thing St. Paul himself, the Hebrew of Hebrews, makes very clear, and my final position is this: you are not allowed, Jesus does not allow you to be an anti-Semitic jerk face. Thank you.
Steve, thank you.
I was unclear
very
what's
much
being debated
indeed.
here.
I just want to give you, Pastor Doug, an opportunity to respond to Steve's words, and then in turn I'll ask Steve to...
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. Basically, personal animus, personal hatred, personal venom directed at anybody is simply out. Right? You can't magnify the ways of Jesus by defying the ways of Jesus. Jesus required us to not be like that. And of course, if someone asked me, are Jews trying to take over the world? I'd say, well, a Jew already did.
The fact that...
Dude, this is... Yes, but it's such like a... It's such like a neocon thing to say. Like, come up with something original, please. I'm begging you. Say something original. Yeah, it's corny. It's true, but please don't be corny. Don't be cringe. Like, you're avoiding the issue. You're avoiding what's being asked. Hello, Gary Catrue. I saw you watching the Connor interview. Thank you for watching it.
Doug, it would certainly be news to the Chinese, to the Jews, all the banks, because the Chinese...
Yeah, if I were to... Yeah, thank you. If I were to say that, like, the Israeli government is a brood of vipers, I think... Unless, like, if I were to say brood of vipers, it would obviously be, like, me quoting Jesus, so I don't think these people would, call me anti-Semitic because they know it's, like, a rhetorical thing to do. But I think absent that, they would be upset about it.
Chinese think that they do.
Look, I know this is an issue on which there'll be a lot of questions and a lot of feeling, a lot of strong feeling. But
I can't get over that they had a foreigner to moderate a debate about American foreign influence. It doesn't make an American foreign policy. It's just so stupid. Like, it's so dumb. I'm a pancake. Thank you for being here.
We want to open things up now to the floor, and if I think there are some, I can see some people queuing up there in a line. Yes, sir, would you like to go first?
I'm Corwin. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. And my question is, how can people even consider that Israel is our greatest ally when the Talmud says blasphemous things about Jesus Christ and claims that non-Jews are subhuman?
I was very quickly, whether or not Israel is our greatest ally is a political question, and as I said in my comments, totally in bounds. We can talk about foreign policy and whether or not Israel is our greatest ally. That's one thing. The second thing is you have to realize that the Talmud was a collection of writings over the course of 800 years, and it's as though you have someone gathered up all the issues of Cosmopolitan magazine over 800 years, and then you said the Talmud said, Cosmopolitan says, well.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is just, can we get to the...
Which rabbi, which time, which century personally learned from the Talmud? And they buy up American intellectual property and pirate our commerce and economy. There's a lot of people right now in our movement that want Qatar to be our greatest ally, and all they're doing is taking Al Jazeera TV and beaming hate into all the Muslim immigrant homes that we brought into this country since 9/11. So they're now more radicalized on the streets of the United States than they are over in the schools of Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia. So when we can play this game of darts and throw jello at the wall, like greatest ally and things of that nature, you can pick and choose
This is
whatever you
true.
want to do.
This one is true. He actually has a point.
If you're ever beginning from the premise that somehow an alliance with Israel is inciting Islam, with all due respect, you are ignorant of 1,300 years of world history. For 1,300 years, there was no nation on the earth called Israel, and we had Islam. And Islam just left us alone. They were great with, is that what they did, Doug? They were great with the West. They loved us. We were just peaceful. They all wrote with the curved sword, right on the curved swords. Right on the curved swords of Islam, they had the coexist bumper sticker, right on those. You could read it, in fact. Right before it smited your neck, you could read that. All right? That's just simply not the truth of history. And we have a president right now who is a deal maker. Ask yourself, look at the historic deals that Trump has cut in the Middle East.
This is
Ask
true,
yourself,
but
if
it
there
is
were
a
no Jewish
non-answer.
states whatsoever in the middle of that region.
Yeah.
Who would he deflect to for leverage in a negotiation? How would he get the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Jordanians to the table if he didn't say, listen, if you guys want to negotiate?
What are your thoughts on Islam? It's terrible. I think that Islam is more physically dangerous. I think Islam is the most physically dangerous religion, and I think Judaism is the most theologically dangerous religion.
I'll just go ahead and give Israel all the weapon systems we haven't given them yet to make it even. You need leverage points in negotiations. And earlier this year, who was it that launched the drones that shot down the Iranian missiles aimed at the Iron Dome? Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt. So I kind of think I don't have to make a theological case for Israel whatsoever. I don't have to look at any of their previous theological statements.
The Talmud question is kind of moot. It doesn't consider that Israel is not a Jewish religion state. It's only a Jewish culturally and one of the most aesthetic places in the world. I think maybe you mean ethnic, but yeah, either way, yeah, this is true. I think a large number of Muslims believe in supremacy, and that's similar to the Nazis. I agree with you. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Every knee and every
atheist states in the world. Yeah, that's true.
tongue, every knee must bow, and every tongue must confess that Jesus is Lord, and everybody that doesn't recognize Jesus is Lord, Jew and Gentile alike, will spend hell suffering for all of eternity apart from the grace of God. Amen? But as a foreign policy deflector shield, you want as much cartilage in the knee, my friend, between you and Islam. And all the people in this audience, let me tell you this. You want as much cartilage in the knee between you and Islam as you can possibly get, I can promise you. And the guy whose stage we're all inhabiting here today, he knew it best when he said, Islam is not compatible with Western civilization.
Yeah, that's true. All that's true. It's just, I think the correct answer to that question is the one AJK gave, which is like, it's not like there are other reasons, but I don't think that's a good reason. I'm not even disagreeing with that being offensive. I think those things are incredibly offensive. I think we should probably talk about them more. In Christianity, I'm just not convinced that it's a good geopolitical argument. And I hope that the distinction I'm making makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you both. Question over there, gentleman over there.
What is the greatest issue that Israel is doing to America? Like, is it AIPAC? Is it collateral damage? Is it Jewish billionaires? Like, what's the greatest issue that they have on America?
Yeah. The premise of your question essentially says President Trump is a schmuck, to use a Yiddish term. I mean, you're essentially saying that Trump is a schmuck, and the tail is wagging the dog. That somehow he's not in charge, and some secret cabal of people are yanking his chain, and then he doesn't know what he's doing. The people leading our government don't know what they're doing. The people are not critical thinking. And so I would ask you, what is the premise of your own question? I mean,
none of that is what he said. He asked you to say a negative thing about Israel, and you were unable to do so. Thank you for the Gesundheit. In Australia, the Bondi attack, if that was a white man royal commissions into white supremacy, but because it was an Islamic attack, he's blaming guns. Yeah, this is true. Obviously. Yeah, I think like this is another dodge, right? The guy is wanting to say like, hey, can you please? I will say this, it's a poorly phrased question, right? The correct way to phrase it is Israel doing anything bad, right? Like Mysterion just said in chat. But I think if you're going to be on the debate stage, you need to be able to understand what's being actually asked. So I do think it reflects negatively on Steve. I thought it was Deese, but I guess it's Dace. Steve Dace, that he he chose not to answer the question obviously being asked, and instead went with you're saying President Trump is a schmuck and isn't in charge, because that's not what was being asked. If he didn't realize that, then I mean that's unfortunate, but I would be surprised, I guess. But hopefully, I guess charitably, I hope that he didn't know what was being asked.
Are the Jews with you today? Are they there in the room with you? I mean, what's the premise of your own question?
I think there are some issues with Israel. I think AIPAC should register with FARA. I don't know how much collateral damage should be having in Gaza, but there's a certain limit of how many innocent children and women that should not be dying. I agree war, bad things happen, but there is a limit to collateral damage.
How many limits were there on October the 7th, and when did you post about those limits and your concerns?
You're comparing 2,000 people to 60 to 70,000 people.
What's your evidence of 60 to 70,000 people? Where'd you get that?
And this guy fully falls apart here. I watched this ahead of time. This guy fully falls apart here. You have to have an answer to this question, obviously, and the answer he's going to give is unsatisfactory and idiotic. But yeah.
Ask any artificial intelligence where you would get unbiased information, and you would find a consensus of that.
Dude, you can't. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's
like
so dumb.
I think that's what you kids today call a cell phone. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, okay, he does win there. It is a cell phone.
That needs to be asserted here.
It is a cell phone.
Statement that the first casualty in any war is the truth. There's the fog of war. Propaganda, atrocity stories are as old as dirt. That doesn't mean that they can't be true, but it does mean that you shouldn't go on Instagram and establish the truth that way. So basically, atrocity stories, if it really happened, that's an atrocity.
That was dumber than I thought. Yeah, it was dumber than anybody thought it was going to be.
War just the way bloodshed does.
Can I just redirect really quick? I want to make sure that you guys understand. I push back because I want to see the premise of his question. Being concerned about the loss of innocent life and unnecessary escalating collateral damages, there's nothing wrong and immoral about that whatsoever. The question becomes, what's the premise of what you're asking? Which is why I push back on, well, where was the anger about what happened on October the 7th? Did you see what he did there? All right? He just started counting bodies as if somehow the Israelis were just sitting there begging for this to happen to them, and they weren't. What provoked this? What provoked this operation? Since 2006, it's funny, those of you that want so-called Palestinian autonomy, in many respects you sound very much like the neocons you claim to hate, because that's exactly what they believed in, was Palestinian autonomy and Palestinian agency, and the Israelis gave it to them, and they gave them essentially their own state right there on their border, and what they did is turn right around and vote for Hamas, and led to exactly the events that we just saw on October the 7th, and the events that we have seen since. So, if we want to have a moral...
This is an actual answer, which I'm not educated enough to debate, to be honest with you, but I appreciate that he's giving an actual answer. Philip Rivers is low-key based. Yes, he is. Philip Rivers is super based. He's such a cool guy. Cool, not our problem. Yeah, I also would say I'm not sure that it's our problem. Like, you need to make an argument for why we need to be involved in that. Because the argument from the isolationist side is that both things are terrible and we should be able to call out both things.
If we want to have a moral conversation, then I think you have to start from the right moral premise. If anything, the Israelis have been wrong in giving away too much land, giving too much infiltration to their own enemies, and listening to the neocons too much.
One sentence, but just very quickly. When October 7th happened, one of my grandsons was at Columbia University. So this horrendous thing happened in Israel. And the next day, there was an Insta protest at Columbia University, pop-up protest, pro-Palestinian protest, right after October 7th. The thing was a coordinated op.
Thank you. Yes, the lady at the front, over there.
Hi, my name's Nathan.
That's also true. Those protests were ops.
Go Blue.
I will say this, the people who, there are some people, I think Patrick Casey, I'm going to, while this plays, look up the Patrick Casey video on Israel, because Patrick Casey made a really good point about, in his video on Israel, that, like, you can't, like, people are using the Israel issue to make less of an issue of Islam than they should be. And that you need to be able to do both. And I'm just going to, oh gosh. I wish I could find it. I always get Patrick Casey confused with Father Casey. True. That does happen. I guess I'm trying to find it. Can we talk about how terrible X's search function is? The search function on X is terrible. Oh, I found it. I found it. Cool. Yeah, so we'll react to the video after we do this, because it's related. But the caption of it, and this is a good summary, the main issue for America right now are mass migration and race communism, not Israel. And I think that's true. I think that's a good point. And I think a lot of people who ask these questions, well, don't think it's wise or correct to attack these guys with dishonest rhetoric, or rhetoric that is not honestly, or is at least not making a wholehearted attempt to engage. I wouldn't call dishonest is an assumption of intent, and I don't want to do that. It's not making a wholehearted attempt to engage with the objections.
Conservatives that question foreign aid to Israel get called anti-Semitic by some other conservatives. So am I anti-Semitic for questioning $38 billion sent in the last year while we have homeless American veterans on the streets in need of aid?
100% you're not. I don't think anybody should get a cotton picking thing. That would be my position. All right. But did you know how much we gave to Ukraine this year? Interesting. We gave 115% more aid to Ukraine this year than we did Israel. And I find
She's saying yes. So let's keep in mind, she's saying yes. She does know that we gave more to Ukraine than Israel this year.
Fascinating to me that there's a lot of blue checkmark influencers in my industry that just don't seem to care about that. They don't seem to mind that we are literally just flushing money down the toilet in Ukraine for a fake war between the World Economic Forum and Vladimir Putin.
And that's, I mean, to say that they don't care is a different thing. We all agree on that, so it's not necessary to bring it up, right? So you can't say, oh, we all agree that this is bad, so in intra right-wing struggles, it doesn't get brought up as an answer to why, like, it's not an answer, right? Like, I don't think you're engaging with the question. The question, the answer should be, no, you're not. There are people who say so, and they are wrong, right? But you're misdirecting to an unrelated issue. I mean, it's almost a textbook red herring. Why does no one care about Ukraine getting money? Because you don't get called hateful for that. That's completely correct.
Over 100% more money as opposed to the money we've given to Israel. And you can boo me all you want, but those are the numbers. And so do we care about that we give money to Israel, or do we care that we shouldn't give money to anybody? If it's the latter, I'm all in for that. All right? I completely agree.
So I'm with Steve. Of course, opposing that kind of foreign aid to Israel is not anti-Semitic. That's one of the things I referenced in my talk. And I'm with Steve. I'd like our foreign aid to go to zero for everybody.
Thank you for your question. We've got time for one or two more. Yes, gentlemen over there.
Yes, my name is Vash. I'm from Georgia, and I have a question for Pastor Wilson. So, do you believe that modern Jews, the Ashkenazi, the Sephardic, etc., do you believe they are the same as the Jews of the Bible, the 12 tribes of Israel, and the Jews in Jesus' day? And if you do not, I would ask you why you believe in soft supersessionism and that there is a necessity for a new state of Israel for those people.
That's a great question. First, the theory is that some promote is the Ashkenazi Jews were Eastern Europeans, basically, that converted to Judaism sometime in the late Middle Ages. I believe that the Ashkenazi Jews are genuinely Jews, but I think it's a reasonable question to raise whether or not they are. If someone says Ashkenazi Jews are not really Jews, then I would say, okay, so they had nothing to do with the crucifixion of Jesus, right? Right? Thank you. They had nothing to do with it. Secondly, I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because throughout the Old Testament, it's always covenantal. It's not DNA imprints or bloodlines.
Bro, what are we doing? No, it's not. It's literally not. It is actually, it's so bloodlines. It's like, it couldn't be more bloodlines. It couldn't be more bloodlines. And to prove to you that bloodlines are important, right? Let me do some reading here from this book. This book I have on my shelf. Let me do a little reading from a book here. A record of the ancestry from which Jesus Christ, the son of David, son of Abraham, was born. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac of Jacob, Jacob of Judah and his brethren, Judah of Phares and Zerah by Tamar, Phares of Esron, Esron of Aram, Aram of Aminadab, Aminadab of Nason, Nason of Salmon, Salmon of Booz by Rahab, Boaz of Obed by Ruth, Obed of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David, and King David was the father of Solomon by her that had been the wife of Urias. Solomon was the father of Rehoboam, Rehoboam of Abias, Abias of Asa, Asa of Jehoshaphat, Jehoshaphat of Joram, Joram of Ozias, Ozias of Joatham, Joatham of Achaz, Achaz of Ezekias, Ezekias of Manasseh, Manasseh of Amon, Amon of Josias. Hey, I know that guy. And Josias was the father of Jeconias and his brethren at the time of the removal to Babylon. And after the removal to Babylon, Jeconias was the father of Salathiel, Salathiel of Zorobabel, Zorobabel of Abuid, and so on. Well, I don't want to read the whole thing. Okay, cool. So at the beginning of Matthew, we have that. What do we have at the beginning of Mark? This is one of my favorite books. Good book for this. Is one of my favorite. Mark doesn't have a one. This is what I get for not knowing my Bible well enough, is embarrassing myself and saying what's the beginning of Mark. How about Luke? Luke doesn't have one. What about John? John. I'm pretty sure Luke has one. What? Luke has a kind of lineage. Yeah. The point is multiple of the Gospels have lineages. Jesus's lineage mattered. He had to be descended of Abraham and David, right? I think Luke traces it from Adam. It's traced from Adam and Abraham, both. I know that. Right? And there's a reason it was the tribe, right? And we looked at last week the parts from Thomas Aquinas on citizenship in the Old Testament Israel, and Aquinas makes the point that you had to be in Israel 3 generations because you had to have the common good in mind. You had to have the lineage in mind. And Matthew specifically was for the, thank you for this is why I needed my chat, because they're smarter than me. Matthew was the gospel specifically targeted at the Jews. And so his lineage, his blood was important. The covenant was a covenant of blood.
It's the covenant. If these people covenanted with the God of Abraham in the Middle Ages, and they've been living that way for centuries, then they're in covenant. They're in that covenant. So most of Abraham's household was not related to Abraham by blood, but they were all circumcised, first generation Hebrews, but they didn't have any blood connection to Abraham.
But they were the first ones. They are in his household, and after them, it is passed on by blood.
So the issue is not bloodlines. The issue is always covenant.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your questions.
It's just so not true. It's so obviously not true. You're trying to read what you're doing is so obviously trying to read the propositional nation into Israel. And if Israel is about a covenant, then why does the atheist nation of Israel have a right to Israel? Like, you get 2 choices here. Either the Jews should have gone to Israel because they were Jewish and they had the blood, or they should go to Israel because they have the covenant. If they have the blood, then you have the question of, well, when the Jews had the blood and the covenant in the Old Testament, when they rejected Jesus, when they rejected God, right? When they rejected the covenant, when they fell away from the covenant, they lost Israel. They lost their right to it. They were exiled multiple times. So why do they have a right to it? You need to answer that. And if they don't have the blood and it's about the covenant, it's not about the blood, then why do we have this atheist nation that has the same rights? This is your least lesbian hairstyle, by the way. Good job. Thank you.
So I think the great heresy that's been in the church in the last generation is that we have taken what Jesus said were the 2 commandments and we've inverted them. And what the seeker-sensitive movement did, which one of Charlie's legacies is convicting the scam that was the seeker-sensitive movement. All those seeker-sensitive pastors who said they were too good for Charlie and held out Turning Point USA, well, he was the one actually going to where the seekers were. And a lot of you are in this room because he reached people like you, right? And what we did in this last generation in the church is we said, love your neighbor as you love yourself is the most important thing. And therefore we could offend God, we could alienate God, and God would just get over it, basically. And so we need to make the first commandment that Jesus said, summarizing the first tablet of the law, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. We need to make that great again in the American church because that will reset everything else, right? But let me add this, though. That second greatest commandment, folks, number 2 is still pretty high on the list. You must love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus did not say love your neighbor unless they're an Ashkenazi Jew. Jesus did not say love your neighbor unless you disagree with their Gaza operation. Jesus did not say love your neighbor unless you disagree with them. We still have to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. That still ranks very high in the kingdom of God. And I promise you this on the authority of his word. Your efforts to save your country will not be blessed by God unless you do that. I promise.
Steve, thank you.
Yes.
Doug.
I would simply want to echo what Steve said. If we are involved in the reformation and restoration of America, this is an arduous task, and it goes down to your personal life and the condition of your heart. You can't make a good omelet with rotten eggs. And if you have hate in your heart, if you are debating the wrong way, then the issue is not the debate. The issue is the way you approach the debate. So if we're urging you to think like a Christian and vote like a Christian and get engaged like a Christian and educate your children like a Christian and worship God like a Christian, well, love your neighbor like a Christian, debate like a Christian, raise the questions, but raise the questions as though God were there with you, because he is.
Pastor Doug Wilson and Steve Dace, thank you both so much for...
All right. Okay. Well, that was interesting. Let's go to the Patrick Casey video because we've talked a lot about Israel the past couple days. So let's change that a little bit. Let's put everything in perspective.
It is time to stop putting Israel first. Now, this is something that I don't think many people on either the pro-Israel right or the anti-Israel right want to hear. But it's a message that I think is nevertheless necessary. Since October 7th, many people on the right have decided that criticizing Israel is the #1 issue. Now, I just want to be clear. I have plenty of my own criticisms of U.S.-Israel relations. There are valid concerns about foreign aid, about our focus on the Middle East versus other parts of the world. But what I'm talking about is something that goes far beyond those reasonable critiques. What I'm talking about is the people for whom Gaza is more important than America. This isn't me exaggerating or misrepresenting other people's opinions. This is quite literally what these people believe. You could look at Martyrmaid, for example, who said that he doesn't care what happens in the state or the city of New York. He doesn't care if Zohar Mamdani, a far-left race communist, becomes mayor. Okay, but this is someone who has been crying about what's happening in Gaza ever since October 7th. In fact, it seems that he's devoted most of his commentary since then to what's happening in Gaza. So it's very clear that there are people on the right who are trying to make whether or not you like Israel the primary friend-enemy distinction, and also, of course, the primary issue. What matters most is mass deportations, combating race communism, crushing the left, and taking our country back and making it better. That's no small feat, of course, and there are going to be people who are, somewhat critical of Israel or supportive of Israel who agree.
I consider Gaza and NYC to be equally foreign. I think that's wrong. One of them is possesses your heritage. It's the great city of your nation. You need to care for it. I understand that it might be foreign to you in some ways, but it is more yours and therefore more your responsibility than Gaza is.
Agree on that goal. But nevertheless, there are people like Tucker Carlson and some people in that orbit who are trying to make everything about Israel. They're trying to make the friend-enemy distinction not where you stand on these pressing domestic issues, but where you stand on Israel. And just to be clear, there are people on the pro-Israel wing who I feel are kind of guilty of that as well. And I think what's happened is this anti-Israel or sort of JQ right has kind of become a mirror image of some of the worst offenders in the pro-Israel crowd, where everything's about Israel. If you don't feel the right way about Israel, then you're no good. This isn't to say everyone or even most people who like Israel on the right feel that way. But I think most people watching this are aware of what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, any cause is going to have more reasonable advocates than others, and that applies to both the pro and the critical of Israel camps. Now, just to be clear, I understand why after October 7th, people were very up in arms about the potential for there to be another forever war in Israel. I was one of them. I was very critical. I said we should absolutely not be committing troops over there, and that's still a position that I hold. But the fact remains that as the Gaza war is dying down, I don't think there's ever going to be fully peace in the region. But it's very clear, especially after the 12-day war, that Donald Trump, believe it or not, is not going to get us involved in, Iraq War 2.0. We're not going to initiate some kind of ground invasion of Iran. So now that we hopefully see that World War III.
Yeah, I think this is all correct. He's an idiot. Why? And who is he? I don't understand. I don't do well with the pronoun game. Who is he? Who do you mean by he? What do you mean by that? The thing about the Metropolitan Police is funny. Who is they, though?
Is not going to happen in the Middle East as a result of anything Israel, Hezbollah, Hamas, or Iran are doing. Hopefully we can all remember that what happens in America is more important than what happens in other countries. The problem with a lot of the anti-Israel stuff I see on the right is, again, that it goes beyond valid critiques of our relationship with Israel, valid critiques, good faith critiques of the Netanyahu administration, into just basically mass hysteria about Jews, people saying that World War III is about to break out, people acting like Donald Trump is totally controlled by the state of Israel. Well, if you actually look into what the Israeli right says, and even some pro-Israel people here in America, Donald Trump does a lot of stuff that the Israeli kind of faction doesn't like. So he is supportive of Israel, but he is not Israel's pawn. And that's a distinction that I think you probably have to be 100 IQ to understand, which disqualifies, I understand, many of the people.
Okay, I think that I don't know if pawn is a good word. I think he's probably too pro-Israel. Pawn seems to insinuate that he does whatever they want, and he clearly has not been doing that. I think that this is a little bit too pro-Trump, too understanding, but yeah.
Who obsess over Israel on Twitter all day. But the fact is that when you have the anti-Israel stuff making for essentially good podcasting, not that I find it particularly interesting, but it gets you clicks, it gets you views, it gets you an international audience, and of course international donors, there's kind of an incentive for people to be a little less than reasonable about all of this. So when I look at what Tucker Carlson is doing, I don't really see him demanding, there's no list of demands, we have to stop foreign aid to Israel, we have to commit. Because if that were the case, we could have a discussion, both sides could kind of come to the table, maybe hammer out some kind of arrangement, but instead it's just really a debate over whether or not Israel is good, the Jews are good, and that's not really something that...
I think this is a fair question to ask. This is a fair question to ask. This is a fair question to ask, is what the financial incentive is in the podcasting space. Pawns do get, yeah, you're correct.
Can be solved. So for people who want to have big podcasts, for people who have access to grind against Mark Levin and other pro-Israel figures, they just want to keep this going. But if you zoom out and you look at the coalition that elected Donald Trump, by far the most effective right-wing administration in, I don't even know how long, decades, many decades, it should be clear that without either Christians or Jews, you're not going to get something like this in the future. Some people would like to believe that you can just totally say no to Jews or anyone who likes Israel, which includes a very large chunk of the electorate, at least the people who vote for Republicans. They think that you can just say no to all those people, go away, and then you can elect Thomas Massey president or something. It is completely delusional. So the answer to this is to not just have this open-ended, ongoing e-drama, basically, about whether or not Israel is good, but to stand for non-intervention.
It's going so fast, hard to understand. Sorry, I have ADHD. It could go faster.
Principles, to stand for disengagement from the Middle East, and we have an honest, good faith discussion about these issues within the coalition. Now, I understand that this position, which is a little nuanced, it's not based on political tribalism, is probably going to anger people on both sides. For the pro-Israel crowd, maybe this is evidence that I've gone full Tucker, or Qatar is paying me or something of the sort. And for, of course, the anti-Israel crowd, this is further evidence that I'm being paid $7,000 per minute by Benjamin Netanyahu to unquestioningly support the state of Israel. Now, clearly, neither two of those explanations are the case. This is just honest commentary. This is my position. And again, I think that the smart...
Very large constituent, and only like 2% of the vote, 70-30 Dems. He's not talking about the Jews. He's talking about the evangelical, Republican voter, the mainline evangelical Republican voter who does vote mostly Republican, and Israel is a big issue for them.
Other people in the online or dissident right already view things this way. So if you too agree with this position, go ahead and retweet the video, subscribe to the Substack, patrickcasey.com.
Well, that's very good. I think he was right about that. Okay, I'm going to feed Levi, and then, oh, shoot. I'm going to feed Levi, and then we'll watch the
tensions within the conservative
the Doug Wilson video breaking it down. But I'm going to feed Levi first. I know you guys want jazz. Yeah, I'm sick. I am sick. Okay, here we go.
Today are not the result of mere differences of opinion. They are the result of wicked and unsubstantiated allegations, promised receipts that are followed up by no receipts, lies that are covered up by being slathered in more lies. The conservative movement today are not the result of mere differences of opinion. They are the result of wicked and unsubstantiated allegations, promised receipts that are followed up by no receipts, lies that are covered up by being slathered in more lies. I just got back late Saturday night from Amerifest 2025, Turning Point's national conference. It was quite a wild ride down there, and I've never seen anything quite like it. To get anywhere, you had to navigate through what must have been 17 acres of vendors and podcasters, with all of the podcasters casting pod content at one another. Reminds me of the time they threw two Scotsmen down into a pit, and they both got rich selling rocks to each other. There were just thousands of wall-to-wall people, the air just crackling with right-wing hustle, and the tight security and the loud furries protesting across the street. All in all, it was quite the spectacle. I consider myself personally enriched for having been there. What I want to do here is share my opening remarks from the discussion about Israel and the Jews that I had with Steve Deace, and then follow that up with some color commentary afterwards. There are a few things I touched on in my opening remarks that I really need to expand on. And by expand on, I mean soaking them with lighter fluid, setting them off, and then gesticulating at them in an animated fashion. I'm including my remarks in their entirety below because there were some pretty gaudy reactions online afterwards, meaning all thrust and no vector, like what happens when you're blowing up a child's party balloon and it slips from your fingers before you can tie it off and it visits every last corner of the living room. This is not a discussion of the aftermath of the conference as a whole, but rather just the fallout from my little part in it.
Bro, can you please skip over all the random analogies and get to the substance? I don't want to hear it. I'm really not interested.
So here we go. I'm going to highlight in bold certain phrases that were missed by those who thought to characterize my comments as those of a Zionist pig who made off in the night with my Judas shekels. What I intend to do right after that, first, is explain the state of civil strife within the conservative movement.
I do like his microphone. It's a sick mic. I love these mics.
Mind readers, sometimes deliberately and other times because they just can't help it. What I then want to do after that is tie all of this in with the gospel, the only answer to what currently ails the conservative movement, which would include, incidentally, Nicki Minaj being there. So get a load of my opening remarks. The biblical expositor John Stott once observed that fuzzy thinking was one of the sins of our age. When you connect this to ignorance, malice, and bad faith, you can find the variant is soft supersessionism, face the actual differences. Jesus are a uniquely malevolent force for evil in the world, and that this fact justifies a one-size-fits-all negative response to anything related to them. Christian Zionists and Christian supersessionists do have pronounced theological differences, but one thing they can agree on is that Jew hate is a serious sin. What do I mean by a high-performance people? The Jews manifestly not doing. So why should Jews listen to Jesus when you don't? You know, like Candace does, recklessly connecting dots. But Liberty was an intelligence-gathering ship, and LBJ was president. Israel was in the middle of the hot 1967 war.
I just skipped to this part.
That there was no
I skipped the rest of it because we just saw it, but I skipped to this part because I want to know if he changes anything. But first, I'm going to blow my nose again. I went to Kroger today to get cough syrup and cough drops, and I forgot tissues, so toilet paper it is. That's a fair point, Mysterion, but you should still recognize that it makes it harder for them to follow him when you don't, while telling them to.
American deep state in 67? How confident are you that we weren't playing to both sides and feeding intel to Egypt? How confident are you that America can only be double-crossed and can never be the double-crosser? Your confidence in the essential goodness of the CIA is endearing. I want to close by saying that I believe that debates about foreign policy and America's relationship to Israel, or what happened to the USS Liberty, or anything like that, are totally in bounds. Debates about whether the organizers of this conference were complicit in the murder of Charlie are in another category entirely, a category best described as demented or unhinged. If passive-aggressive gaslighting insolence had a basketball team, it is long since time to retire Candace's jersey. Those assertions are not in the same universe at all, and so the latter one must never be allowed to hide under the former. Various excommunications. Vivek spent a good deal of time saying who had no place in the conservative movement. Ben Shapiro went after the Candace and Tucker types, and Steve Bannon denounced Ben Shapiro as an adversary. Megyn Kelly said that she was not going to denounce Candace for simply asking questions, which is not what Candace is doing, and the vice president said he was not going to play the denouncing game, thereby implicitly denouncing those who would like to see some more denouncing. It is entirely fair to...
I don't think that that's what Megyn Kelly said, and if you want to see my whole take on it, there's nearer to the end of last week's stream. I'm sure you can find it there.
Say that there was a good deal of epistemic hostility between various speakers who appeared on stage and who spoke at this conference. But I don't think it is...
I thought about watching Vance's remarks, by the way, but that's what he said. That was the only important thing he said, was the, like, I'm not going to denounce people. So...
The same with the rank and file. Not at all. The attendees had a lot more commonality among themselves than the speakers did. The way I read the room, judging from audience reactions and applause lines, they are more than ready to accept various policy debates as inbounds, as represented in the penultimate paragraph of my remarks, along with other related matters. They are also ready to be done with the Candace drama, our right-wing theater kid, about which more in a few minutes. When Isaiah pronounced a judgment upon the land of Egypt.
I do want to say real quick, the theater kid insult being normalized as like a mainstream, like, oh, you're a theater kid? No, you're a theater kid. Credit to John Doyle for that, because he's the one who came up with that term as like a originally. So
Civil war is the instrument in the Lord's hand. Quote, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Isaiah 19:2. Notice that phrase, I will set. Civil strife, civil war is the finger of God. It is his judgment. One of his instruments in bringing this about is the perverse spirit that he pours into the bowl in order to stir it up. Quote, the Lord hath mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man
oh, the
staggereth in his
Pop-Tarts
vomit.
bowl was today.
Isaiah
I didn't get to
19:14.
watch
There's
it.
no way that this is going to stop unless the Lord stays his hand, and he's not going to stay his hand until we humble ourselves and ask him to. The USS Liberty. Certain reckless souls said that my point in bringing up the attack on the USS Liberty was that the 34 sailors who died had it coming, and that I was taking up the side of Israel, arguing that they were entirely justified in attacking our ship. It was said somewhat grimly that this was a bold take indeed. Outrage ensued. Quite a bit of outrage ensued. Quote, all day they twist my words, all their thoughts are against me for evil. Psalm 56:5, NKJV. One of the reasons why I don't trust such people when it comes to things like Gaza is that I see what they do with things that I know about directly.
But you're not answering the objection. You can say that's not what I meant, but you have to answer why that's not what you meant. You can't just go, you're wrong, and you're twisting my words. Here's a Bible verse. And then, like, that's not an answer. It's not an answer.
You know, like the things I believe and say. When I see the hash they make of my words, twisting them into unrecognizable shapes, you will understand my reluctance to believe what they say about things on the other side of the world. When I see the demented lies they tell about my friends at TPUSA, I don't trust them to identify who my global enemy should be. You know, just one of the quirks I have. But okay, the Liberty. Actually, back here in the real world, I was doing two things. The first is that I was running a reductio on Candace-style questions, showing how easy it is to just start connecting dots. I said that this is what I was doing, saying this in black and white. However, the reactions illustrate how tribal everything has become. If someone, quote-unquote, connects dots in a way that casts some shade at what they think is their team, this is not rage and not to be born. But if they aim it at your team, all they are doing is raising questions. Why are you trying to prevent people from just asking questions? When I said that I was making no assertions, I wasn't kidding. I don't know what was behind what happened to the Liberty and don't pretend to know. At the same time, the dots that I was connecting were not pulled out of thin air. The hypothesis that I put forward depended upon the following facts. The Liberty was an intelligent ship. Israel was in the middle.
That's not an answer. The problem with what he said was that it insinuated there were conditions on which what happened was justified. And that is the problem. Nobody is saying that you actually thought that happened. What you did say is you came up with a situation by which it might be justified.
Of a hot war with her neighbors, and LBJ was our president. This was in no way casting shade on the men serving on the Liberty, who were simply doing their jobs, the same way that I was doing my job in the same Navy just 4 years later. But per hypothesis, say that the intelligence they gathered was sent back to Langley, and the smart Johnnies there
You can't just say what you said and then go, yeah, but I was in the Navy. That doesn't...
decided that it might be
It's not an answer.
good idea to play both sides. They shared some of that intel with Egypt. Israel put two and two together, overreacted, and attacked the Liberty. The whole thing was then hushed up by both governments. Now, as presidents go, LBJ was quite an unscrupulous dirty bird, manifested in a number of different areas, and so this is not an outlandish possibility. It was not like I was attributing the attack to Klingons or something. And then, it is quite striking that one of the few sensible responses online came from the USS Liberty Veterans Association. They did not believe that having issues with LBJ was outside the pale at all. Here's their response to my follow-up tweet. Quote, thank you for your kindness in responding to our question. Like you, we have issues with what LBJ did during the attack, that being entering in the incident on the side of the IDF by ordering the recall of 6th Fleet aircraft while we were still under attack and calling for help. Hopefully, all of the issues outstanding about the attack on our ship and the cover-up of that attack by the Israeli and U.S. governments will be addressed and resolved by the complete and comprehensive public U.S. government investigation we are seeking. U.S. Liberty Veterans Association. It is frankly astonishing to me that so many on the dissident right today, who say they loathe and despise the intelligence community today, appear to believe that things were all bright and shiny back in the day. Are you kidding? When do they think the deep state got deep? During the last year of Obama's presidency? Look, the coup they attempted with Trump, they successfully did with Nixon. We don't often get to use the word skullduggery, but there are occasions that call for it. So in my dot-connected hypothesis, the issue was not whether the sailors on the Liberty were wronged by Israel. Of course they were. The issue was whether they were wronged by Israel and also by America, whether they were also betrayed by their own president, their own government. So with that said, the hypothesis...
Bro, then you are terrible at rhetoric. You are so bad at rhetoric. If that's what you meant... That's what you meant? Dude, you're bad at this. Just say I screwed it up. Just say I screwed it up.
This I set out might be true and it might not be true. I don't know.
Because guys like Orrin McIntyre, who are friends with you, saw it that way. Just say I fucked it up. Just say, whoops. I was trying to make a point. I messed it up. My bad. Like, dude, come on. You can't, you got it.
But remember, I was just asking questions. No harm in asking questions, right? The message here to everyone is to stop pretending that asking questions is some kind of neutral thing. It is not, and the pretense is wearing thin. Which two things are not like the other? During our session, someone from the audience asked us if it was anti-Semitic to oppose foreign aid to Israel. Both Steve Dace and I said no, it was not. That is a policy issue. Both of us wanted to see our foreign aid to all other countries go down to zero, and that would include Israel. Within the conservative movement, it should be possible to come to a conference held by TPUSA and to hear some speakers argue for zeroing out all foreign aid, and other speakers advocate for a judicious use of strategic foreign aid, with America's best interest being the reason for the aid. Great. Have that debate. Make sure both sides are represented. Talk about policy. Is Israel our greatest ally? Let us debate the question. Let us knock ourselves out. Nobody's an anti-Semite for thinking that some other country is our greatest ally. But there is another question, another kind of question that does not belong at a conference like this at all. That is the question of whether or not the organizers of the conference you are going to were complicit in the grotesque murder of their founder and friend. That is an allegation that is gobsmackingly off the leash, with the holder of the leash being off her meds. If someone thinks that is a reasonable question, and he gets an invitation to speak at TPUSA for some reason, and he accepts that invitation, it really means that he doesn't believe it is a reasonable question at all, and is just being a hypocritical opportunist. Going to the conference to chum around with the murderers? Here's where the great smudge is happening. This is where the disingenuous juke move is being performed. A grotesque libel and slander is hurled at the leadership.
I wonder how I'd feel foreign aid being dropped in Israel. He says he's okay with that. He says he's okay with that. And I think you should take people at their word. So
TPUSA, with preparations being made to be insulted and affronted if they decided not to invite you next time. If they don't invite you next time, it will be a plain indication that they don't want to face the music. They are trying to censor questions. No, it would actually be a plain indication that free speech has performed one of its central functions, which is to identify who the morons are. And in this case, who the impudent morons are. Candace is not just asking questions. She's making very serious allegations. She is an accuser. She is an accuser of persons. She is the perverse spirit that the Lord has poured into the bowl. She is the great bringer of what might be called inviso receipts. She has a vast army of people following her who are demanding the dopamine rush they get whenever she feeds them the next crazy line. That is why the moratorium that Erica and Candace agreed on couldn't hold. It was like arranging a ceasefire with Hamas. Candace has a ravenous bear for an audience, and she has to feed it tainted meat, with that meat getting increasingly tainted. This is why we are moving into territory formerly occupied by those people who needed to read the tabloid headlines about Madonna and Sasquatch having a love child. It is disingenuous and extremist to pretend that these questions are anything like. The gospel for Team Candace. The gospel message has two parts. Those parts are repent and believe.
this is a rhetorical move to put everybody he disagrees with in Team Candace, quote unquote. He may believe it, but it's evidence that he doesn't understand what's happening. So,
repent of what? We're
the greatest ally the U.S. has is, I don't know. I don't know. Who is our greatest ally? I mean, it can't be Britain and it can't be Australia. It might be Japan. Unironically, it might be Japan. I think it might be Japan.
Called to repent of our sins and the sinful nature that produces them. Believe what? We must believe in the person and work of the Lord Jesus, who he was and what he did in his death and resurrection. He was a sin bearer, and when we look to his crucifixion in faith, God forgives us for everything. God forgives all of our sins that were laid across his shoulders. But in order for this to happen, the sins that characterize the person who is estranged from God are sins that need to be named. That is what repentance does. It names. When a preacher names such sins in his gospel offer, it is not personal invective or name-calling, but rather a straightforward summons to new life, an invitation to leave behind the ways of death and to come walk in newness of life. Adulterers must turn away from adultery. Thieves must turn away from stealing. Idolaters must repent of bowing down to statues. And coming to the point here, liars and slanderers must repent of their lies and slander. And so as I name some sins here, it is not scurrilous abuse, but rather one of the things that has to be done on the threshold of everlasting life. Repent and believe. You may certainly come in, but there's a mat on the doorstep for a reason. Wipe your feet, which begins with the recognition that your feet are filthy. The tensions within the conservative movement today are not the result of mere differences of opinion. They are the result of wicked and unsubstantiated allegations, promised receipts that are followed up by no receipts, lies that are covered up by being slathered in more lies. This is a morass, a slough of ungodliness. What we are looking at is a toxic combination of people who are poorly educated, who have been shut out of economic opportunity and are bitterly resentful, who do not understand the biblical standards of evidence and justice and who do not want to understand them, and who have had their grasp of the concept of objective truth rotted out by postmodern tribalism. In other words, to use shorter names for all such results, we have ignorance, envy and bitterness, injustice, and relativism. These are all things that call for repentance. The world is full of sinners, but you can never get right with God by focusing on their sins. You can confess the sins of others all day long, and your layers of unhappiness will only get thicker.
This is
the
true.
bad attitudes that were tearing our country apart.
This is true. He's doing good here. He's doing good at the end. He's doing good at the end. Aside from putting everybody on Team Candace and calling her literally the devil. But he's not. Look, let's give him the benefit of the doubt since we know that he says things in a way that is like harsh. But look, if this ever gets back to him somehow, I'm sorry, Pastor Wilson, you're being sloppy. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And since we know he's sloppy with his rhetoric, let's say he's not. I don't think he's. Let's not say he's calling her the devil. Let's just say he's. Calling her a tool, like a currently being used by the devil, or currently has fallen into sin. So,
and which have now been imported into the conservative movement in order to tear it apart, are not things that can be patched over. The only thing for it is to name the sin and turn away from the sin. This is only possible because the death of Christ on the cross made a way for us to turn away from sin. Apart from his grace exhibited there, we are all dead in our sin, slaves to sin. We cannot extricate ourselves from what we are by nature, which is objects of wrath. In order for us to turn, we must be turned. The only thing that has the power to do this is the death of Christ, given on a cross for the sake of his people. Because he was raised from the dead, it is possible for him to invite you to join him in that resurrection. Those who believe in him are joined with him in his death and are justified by him in his resurrection. But the humbling comes first. So repentance is the first thing we must do, and even that is a gift of God. What is going on right now is not politics, but rather wickedness. Questions are not being circulated, but rather lies. These are not questions to be answered, but rather lies to be repented. Narcissism is not a psychological condition to be treated or flattered by ignorant followers, but rather a radical selfishness that must be crucified. Do I need to remind everyone again that it is either Christ or chaos? And keep in mind that this applies everywhere. Within the conservative movement, it is either Christ or chaos. And the way out of the chaos is to look straight at the ugliness of the sin, turn away from it with a shudder, and, in every sense of the phrase, come to Jesus.
okay. Well, not bad, but he is being sloppy. All right. Let's watch. Oh no, I lost it. I lost it. Let's watch the video of our favorite weird nerds. We love these weird nerds, chat. All right, let's watch the weird nerds.
Black women are biologically different than white women.
Yes, they have different fertility windows. They have a higher rate of fertility complications, 50%
But there's
higher
no
rate.
scientific evidence to prove that a black woman and a white woman are genetically different, right? This is like...
What are you talking
No, they are.
about?
This is according...
Oh, this guy's so smart that he's stupid. He doesn't understand that, like, oh.
Yeah.
No,
But literally, there are genes that code for their skin color. There are genes that...
Again, this is like government data. This is EMI, right? This is the National Institute of Health. This is the American Medical Association.
What are you talking about? I need that. Dude, we should bring back the soundboard so I can have the...
literally...
are genetically different, right? This is like...
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Yes, this was the same couple. That's why I waited to watch it.
No,
literally, there are genes that code for their skin color. There are genes that...
Again, this is like government data. This is EMI, right? This is the National Institute of Health. This is the American Medical Association. Like there is no scientific evidence to prove that.
And that's a big problem, right? Because
there's no scientific
and that's
evidence
why I
around
asked.
things like IQ differences. Black people are genetically different from other populations.
And I'll say that again. There is no scientific evidence to prove that, right? And as people
I'm sorry. I'm stating. Do you want to ask an AI if there's scientific evidence to prove that?
No, I want to ask.
Because what you're stating is just factually incorrect. Humans are genetically diverse. It's not a bad thing that humans are genetically diverse.
I'm not saying it's a bad or a good thing. I'm saying there is no scientific evidence.
And I'm saying that is a factually...
You can't just say that to these people. What's the... Okay.
Saying that there is scientific
evidence. There is scientific evidence. There is overwhelming scientific evidence. Basics... No. This is like saying the sky is not blue. Like... It is genes that code their skin color, right? Those genes are obviously different in them than they are in us. How is that not science? That's just like a basic fact. The genes that code their skin color, their level of melanin production, are different from my genes
And I think, and that's precisely why I was asking this question, because I think for some people that do believe, like you, that people are genetically different, that has historically been used to promote racial hierarchies, right? And that's why I'm asking you, because
She's saying, she said she doesn't think it's good or bad, but then she's saying that it's bad. What? All right, dude, come on. Okay, I saw this. Oh, I saw this meme. This is totally unrelated, but this meme tickled me. It's a fake Fernando Mendoza quote about Big Chungus. I don't think I... Did I retweet it, maybe? Maybe to my retweets. Maybe I retweeted it. What are you talking about? Okay, here we go. This is the one. The required takeaway from the genetic differences video is that your enemies do not use words the way you do. They are not instruments for conveying meaning. They do not illuminate a mapping from mental concepts to physical reality. They are spells provided to them by wizards. The purpose of the spells is to make you do what they want. You may believe that you are having a conversation, but they know they are in a spellcasting contest, and their ignorance of everything that is real provides them with an absolute immunity to your spells. There are millions of spellcasters out there. I am not on Twitter to talk to these people who cannot be reasoned with or bargained with any more than the TV can hear you. I am here to find others who understand the situation for what it is. Words will never get us out of this. There is only one way we are ever going to take our country back from the spellcasters. Every day we spend spellcasting our impotent spells at them is another day they further consolidate their power. Yeah, you can't debate these people. They're so stupid. What are you talking about? Oh, it's so funny, dude. Hello, Simone. Oh, gosh. Well, that's all I had planned for tonight. Is there something else you guys want me to look at? I wanted to give Joe Heschmeyer his flowers for the debate he did, but also one of the Mormon higher-ups died today, and I don't want to stunt on Mormons. That feels uncharitable and rude. A fact is a fact. The issue becomes when people use those facts to push their own biases and objectives, i.e. racial differences, to promote racial supremacy. But yeah, it's stupid. Yeah. Yeah. He died, and I don't... One of their apostles died, and I don't want to pile on.
Merry Christmas. To
Hold
keep
on.
with the festive spirit of this holiday, let's listen to Ben Shapiro's review of It's a Wonderful Life, the greatest Christmas movie of all time, and arguably the greatest movie of all time. Let's hear it.
Also, Lionel Barrymore is correct. So on a financial level, the villain of this piece is actually the hero, because if Jimmy Stewart actually gets his way, all of Bedford Falls collapses in the subprime mortgage crisis. Basically...
Yes, this is a real thing he said, by the way. Dude, come on.
Jimmy Stewart keeps giving out...
You've never seen... Just watch it. Just watch it tonight.
Loans without proper checking into the credit history of the people he's giving loans to based on his sort of assessment of their own personal viability financially. Lionel Barrymore is much more by the numbers. Lionel Barrymore is a better banker, and that local bank probably goes under. So the movie was supposed to be sort of a quasi-socialistic FDR parable.
So Ben Shapiro's financial
Wrong.
hero is the greedy, miserly old banker who screws over the working class of Bedford Falls. Not the compassionate George Bailey, who provides quality low-income housing and fair interest rates to the working class of Bedford Falls. which in turn turns them into better citizens and allows them to participate and contribute in the local economy more. No. Ben Shapiro, I think this is towards the 1%.
Okay, so he's saying da 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 da. Where's the guy who said the other thing? Not to use. There's the guy. Dude, come on. Come on. Terrible. Do you... Minnesota's Somalis fraud has cost U.S. taxpayers nearly the entire GDP of Somalia. Come on, dude. Hold on. I want to show you guys this. If you've never seen this, this is a real thing that happens at a college football event.
Those mascots.
So the Pop-Tarts Bowl, the teams put sprinkles on their helmets. So this is real. There's sprinkles on the helmets. Like, they do custom helmets, custom uniforms. This is not for the national championship, by the way. This game means nothing. Besides, you get to say you won the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And then the winning team sacrifices 2 life-size, like human-sized Pop-Tarts.
And there they are, the edible mascots for BYU.
And then they come out of the toaster and they're edible. And the coach and the players eat them on the field. And you get 2 Pop-Tarts, free Pop-Tarts for 2 years.
Let's toast those mascots.
And this is the game Notre Dame said they didn't want to play in. So as much as we have to be on Team Notre Dame because we're Catholics, this is an L for Notre Dame. If you get to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, come on. It's not the losers, it's just the mascots. It's not the losers. The losers don't get sacrificed. It's just the mascots. I'm not making fun of BYU. We're not talking about the Joe Heschmeyer debate with the Mormon because we don't want to pile on. This is awesome. This is hilarious. Look, there's another one. There's a mower bowl, okay? Once again, nothing. The coach gets grass clippings dumped on him, which is awesome. So funny.
And you back to the studio. Kevin the Gun.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl trophy, hold on. Is a working toaster. This is a working toaster. I hope there's an Aztec Bowl. Let's look up what bowl games happened today. There were like 3 or 4 today, actually. The Gator Bowl, the Texas Bowl. Yeah. So, bowl games are hilarious. They're amazing. The Mayo Bowl, the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many funny bowls now. And they're amazing. College football rocks. So, anyway. That's all I had planned for tonight. Do they sacrifice mayonnaise there? No, it's just sponsored by Duke's. I don't know what they do for the Mayo Bowl. What do you do? What do they do for the Mayo Bowl? Mayo Bowl. Oh, they dump mayonnaise. They dump mayonnaise on them. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's hilarious. Of course, there's the classics: the Sugar Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, and the Rose Bowl. You got to see it. All right, hold on. There you go. The Duke's Mayo Bowl. Cricket Bowl. The Cricket Wireless Bowl. All right, I got pranked. Good job. Bowl. Yeah, you bowl things. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sick, and that's all I had planned for tonight. So unless somebody else has something else that I should have done or forgot to do. Cricket. All right, I'll look it up. Cricket Celebration Bowl. I'll look it up. Oh, it's the HBCU bowl, championship. Sponsored by Cricket Wireless. All right. Well, that's pretty funny. All right. I'm going to be done for the night, boys, because I'm sick and I got through all the stuff. So, y'all have a good night. And God bless you and say your